there everyone, this is the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage and I am making a video today. I've been working on the Singer 15-30. This is a treadle machine that belongs to a client that I've been overhauling. I don't have the treadle table here, that is still at the client's property, but I'm going to basically restore the machine. I've got to pick up some treadle belting and then I'll be installing it back into the treadle table that the owner has. But anyway, I wanted to show you guys some of the things that when you get a machine. This machine has been out of use for a long time. It was very much asleep. I've been working on it, been cleaning out a lot of the old hardware underneath, taking it apart. And I've shown Singer 15 class machines before. This one, and I think I've done a disassemble of this, the earlier 15s have a different arrangement. You have screws here, so this piece, in order to get the hook out, you have to take these out. And then behind it is another screw right here on a plate. So it was a little more involved. Later 15s, they would simplify this and make it easier to take out the hook and get access to the race where you could clean it. But it's not a big deal. It's not like hard. It's just a different setup. But they are wonderful, and there's a reason the Singer 15 is a legend. Now, I don't know, when I first got a hold of this machine, I think I may have put it in the video, a lot of the pieces on the machine were actually not functioning. Now, this is, of course, the stitch length adjustment. Okay, and if I loosen the thumb screw, and if I move this up, if you guys look closely, if you watch the feed dogs, you'll notice they're moving, right? Because I'm able to change their position by moving this lever. When I first got the machine, it didn't work. The lever would move here, but you didn't get any response from the feed dogs. Why? Because the lever is attached to a piece down below. So I've got my hand up here on the lever control. I'll see if I can demonstrate this for you all. So when I move this up, I don't know if you guys can see this. Watch closely. You'll see this moving, right? So the lever is attached to a linkage that connects here, right? And as it rotates, it moves the feed dogs. So watch closely. You're watching these and this area here, and you'll see that movement. Well, this area was all full of dust and dirt, and it was gunked up. It hadn't been oiled in forever because, again, the machine sat dormantly. And so sometimes, if you're fortunate, if something is not working, it may not be broken, it's just stuck. And the ironic thing was the lever, or the little control, you see my hand up here, it would move. But again, it was just moving, but it wasn't actually able to adjust anything. And all of this in here had to be cleaned and lubricated, but now that it is, she's working fine. So sometimes you don't have a broke part, although that is certainly possible. You have a stuck part. So broke and stuck are not the same. So don't despair if your machine doesn't immediately work for you. It could be related to something like that. What else have I been doing? I took the old, hello. I took the, this is a wonderful straight stitch low shank foot from a very early, this is one of the earlier Singer 15s, so it looks a little different, but it's the same, and this is its thumb screw. Just amazing, after all these years, they're still functional and ready to go, just needed cleaning. I also put polish on them. Because polish helps to seal out the effects of moisture, and it cleans them up. And but today, after that long rambling intro to this video, I've taken the side plate off and I've been cleaning. I do this as a matter of course because I like to clean back here. I vacuumed and then taken the lint brush. And then I've gone in here with alcohol to clean, and then I've gone back in with new oil. So this area has been cleaned, but we still needed to take this off. Now, the Singer 15 class, of course, you will know a 15 class because the upper tension assembly for the upper thread tension is on the left side, and it faces left. Most sewing machines have it right here. It's usually on the left, but it's facing toward you. Now, one of the things I did, in addition to looking over the rest of the machine, was to check its check spring, no pun intended. And unfortunately, this one is broken. It's still there, right? The remnants are there if you see behind my finger, but hey, where's the little loop? It's broken off. And you know what? This spring, it may be the original spring from 1906 or whatever. It has a right to retire. You know, it's tired. Many of them, believe it or not, still work after many years. But you all may recall, if I haven't posted it yet, I will soon. I made a video about what is my favorite brand of sewing machine to restore for beginners. If you're new to overhauling sewing machines because you want to do it as a hobby, or maybe you just have one you want to overhaul and you're new to it. The Singer 15 class Singer vintage straight stitch Singers, we'll try that again, are my favorite choice for starting when you're trying to learn how to overhaul a machine. It doesn't have to be a Singer 15, but the good old-fashioned, just most of them are black, Singer dedicated straight stitch, no zigzag, no decorative stitches. They are wonderful to learn on because they are they're very friendly in terms of taking them apart. The quality of the screws is incredible, and you can get parts for them. You can get parts. This is a replacement check spring for this machine, or it should be. This spring is about $5. In fact, it costs more you can get them even for less online, but with shipping and you have to pay for the postage, which is more, right? So, hard to believe that a machine over 100 years old you can still get replacement parts for. And this is because Singer did not mess around. They didn't change. They did make changes over the years, but nothing like almost all of their competitors. And that makes our job easier. So what I'll be doing today is I'm going to take this tension assembly apart, and we're going to replace the check spring. It's not something, believe it or not, you would think, oh, you have to do this often. It's just a spring. They must break all the time. Not so with the old ones. They last a long time, but nothing lasts forever. Not even those. So now you'll notice if you're not used to machines this old, you might think, hey, there's something missing. Where's the numbered dial? Well, there was none. They didn't have numbered dials. Our ancestors had to dial in the tension based on feel, and they would eventually figure it out. I just think that's rather interesting. But anyway, if you look at it from the side, this piece here is built into the side plate. But look here, guys, right here is that pin. Now, when the take-up lever, this right here that you can see me pulling up, when it comes up, it will brush by this spot here, and it will push on this pin. And this pin, guys, still works. It's the original pin. I'm very sure of that. And when you push on it, watch what happens. I'm going to push on it with my finger here. Now watch the discs. When I push on there, did you see them move? Then I come back and they retract. The spring still works. The pin still works after all of these years. It's just amazing. You can see me pushing. When I push on the pin, it releases the discs, right? And then when you don't, the pressure's back on there. So we'll check the pin out, make sure it's clean. Sometimes these pins can stick on any sewing machine, and it'll mess with your tension. Won't work. You'll think, what's going on? Sometimes it's the little pin in there. This one seems fine. And what we've got here is mostly, we got some light oxidation. I'm going to be taking polish to this, and we'll clean it up. It may not come out perfectly, but that's not the point. We want to clean up what we can, and then the polish will seal to help prevent any further oxidation. But right now, I'm going to zoom in here and show you guys how we're going to change out the old check spring. And I'm going to zoom in because it'll make it a little easier. We have a cloudy day, guys. I'm setting up the lighting here. Hopefully this will be pretty decent or okay for you to see what's going on. Let's see. So I normally am closer to it because I don't have a camera in front of my face when I'm doing it. So one of the things you'll want to do when you're taking apart any tension assembly. If you're new to it, or maybe you're not new to it, but you're new to the machine, you want to take this off. You can take pictures. I'm not going to take pictures here. But what you can do is, as you take the pieces off, assuming they're in the right order, you may get a machine where somebody's messed around with it and it's not. But let's just assume that it is. Okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply place this, right? You see where I sat this, and as I take things off, I'm going to look and see, yes, this is called a beehive spring because of the shape. And it's set like it should be. It looks like a little teacup shape there. Right? Doesn't look like the small lowercase e, but rather the opposite. You want it looking like that. If it's not, you'll want to turn it that way. And then I'm going to put it right next to this one. And again, you can do this. You can line them up. You can take pictures of them. But you'll want to do this so you can remember the order you put things in. Okay? Now this one, I'm going to hold this one up when I pull this off. This piece it's a plate, like a plate of some sort, and if I pull on it, it's going to come off or want to come off. I think it's going to want to come off, but I've got to get the, it looks like it's going to pull my little discs off with it, and that's fine. Let's turn this back up a little bit. And as I pull this out, I'm pulling out several things here. Okay, now you'll notice this came out as kind of a set, right? Now you can see what's sitting behind there. We've got our spring basically, and there's a bunch of old grime and grud we're going to clean out of there. Now, one of the reasons I take the tension assemblies apart when I restore machines is, and this one's going to be fairly simple to reinsert when we go back. But I want to get behind there. I want to see what's going on. Mostly what you'll see is just mostly old dirt, maybe a little corrosion. I don't really see much corrosion there. It could be old oil or a combination of all three. So I'm going to set that here, and I'm going to look at my discs. Whoop, and look what fell out, guys. A little piece of, I don't know if that's old lint or what that is, but whatever it is, it just fell out there. And these discs are really old. They're over 100 years old. They're basically nickel-plated steel, and yet they're in reasonably good shape to have just been woken up, you know. So what am I going to do with these? I'm going to take, I'll rinse them off with this rubbing alcohol I have. So we'll just put them in the little alcohol jar here, which I want to keep away from my paint finish. So you can see I'm just going to drop them in the alcohol and let them sit a little bit. It doesn't take long. And what I'm doing is the alcohol is going to clean off the bulk of the dust and the dirt and some of the old oil. And then I'll take a rag to it and I'll clean them off. And then I'll go back with polish. And the polish, you guys have seen this before. This is Winol. You might have one called Autosol. I've seen them made by Reckitt Benckiser. It's made in Germany. It's a very fine grit polish, extremely fine. You may have other polishes you use that work well for you. Okay, while those are soaking, let's take a look at what we have left. We have a lot of dust and dirt, but that's not an issue. We will get that out of there, not to worry. This is a lint brush that I like using, and I can just sort of I'll try to get you guys, I know the light's not super awesome here today, but let me put, I have a little light, flashlight that's got a head strap. I wear it on my head. It makes me look like a miner here, but it's very useful for keeping your hands free. I think I've shown that in one of my tool videos. And what am I doing? I'm just poking around to see what is loose, what is the easy. You know, we're getting gravy here, the old saying goes. We're just getting the loose stuff off, the easy stuff, right? And I can even come in here. I'm not really worried about the spring or bending it because the old spring's got to come out. That we know. Okay, so inside here is the remnants of the spring. So I'm going to pull this out. Try to pull it out. Let's see. So it's actually mounted in there pretty well. So if you look on the side, you're going to see a little screwdriver, and it's there for a reason. It's going to allow us to release, we think, this piece here, I believe. We'll see if she comes out. And you can see on the back, you know, it's designed to literally, if you look, this piece here, this was the little pin that was coming all the way through here on this hole. Other tension assemblies have different pin designs, but they work very similarly. So if I want to, I can take this piece should come out, I believe, if I recall, and we'll see how willing this screw is. Is it going to turn for us? And it's been stationary a long time, so I'm going to get my screwdriver bits, and let's see. We want to find the one that's the best fit. This should work pretty well. Anytime you have a screw or a bolt that has been wherever it is for a long time, a lot of times you can loosen it with penetrants like 3-in-1 oil or actual sewing machine oil. This one did turn for me. I didn't expect it to be too terrible. And I'm not going to pull it all the way out. Let's see. We've gotten it pretty loose here. Well, I guess I did pull it out. That is also something that can happen. All right. What are we looking to do here? Looking to see if we can loosen this piece. There it comes. Now, I want to be sure, right? Notice, I want to notice which way is this thing facing, right? How is it, what is it shaped like? You'll notice that this piece is open from here to here, from about 1 o'clock to 5 o'clock. And this is where it was, right? So I really want to kind of leave it, I want to remember this, so if I pull it out and I put it back, I know which way it was. And look at that, guys. There she comes. She plopped right out. Who knows how long it's been, right? So we'll clean this up in here. But I pulled it out mainly so that we could see about getting the spring out. Now, let's look for our wayward spring. Or should I say the little screw that went plopping onto the floor. Okay, now let's take a closer look at where our spring lives. Now the spring, one way to kind of appreciate this is if you ever look at any of these springs, here's a close-up of the new one we're going to be putting in. You'll notice that it has a turn on the very end here. Let's see if we can get it. There we go. And it needs that, you'll see, because it's going to have a place to pop into and hold on to so the spring doesn't go flying around. So we need to remove the current spring. And you can see it still has, the spring is still flexible after all these years. Now I don't know for certain this is the original spring, but it's not a bad guess that it probably is. And I'm not worried about bending it or because it's no good, right? We can't use it anymore. So we're going to get it out, and it's okay. It's all right if the spring gets distorted because we're not keeping it. Let's zoom back out just a bit here. And what I'm doing is I'm taking the spring and turning it, trying to see down in there with this flashlight to see what I can see. Okay guys, just wanted to get in a position. I needed both hands here and needed to move some things around, get the camera out of my way. But anyway, we have the little piece here that came out of this piece. Remember, I loosened the screw on the side and I was able to pull this out. Well, this is the old check spring, and it is attached at the very end of this. This is actually designed to screw out of this. However, it's been in there a long time, so I took some 3-in-1 oil, sprayed it in there, and then where's the other one? I ended up taking 2 small vice grips, grabbing hold of one end here and this one so that I could turn it. Who knows if it may have been there since 1905. By the way, I checked the serial number. This machine was produced in 1905. But anyway, I was able to loosen this. Did not use heat in this case, although you could. So we'll take the other vice grip off. We don't need it anymore. And this is what I took out. Now on this end you see threads, because this is where all of the tension assembly components that you're used to seeing on the outside thread onto the shaft. But on this side of the shaft are also threads. And at the very, very end here, these are the remnants of the original the original spring that I took out, right? And you'll notice that it actually attaches to the very end here. So this had to come out in order to get the new spring ready to be installed. And so let's see if I can get a little more light here. Not sure how well this is focusing for you guys. And what we should be finding is a little hole or a slot that we're going to put this spring into. So I'm going to take this here. This is where you can see where I put the 3-in-1 oil down in there to get it loose. So now I'm going to see if I can get a little brighter light here, and we'll see what we can find, because remember the new spring has this little divot, right? And it's going to need to come on to the very end here, so that when we go to put this back in, we're going to be able to use this check spring. And we'll know for sure if in fact this check spring is the right one. This is supposed to be for a Singer Class 15. If it's not, I'll need to order a separate spring, but I just wanted to, this one is, I don't know how often Singer changed the check spring over the years with these machines. So let's see, could be that the hole is further down here. So we'll take a look here and see. I'm going to clean this part up here and then we'll see if we can see a little bit better. Okay guys, had to get more batteries in this flashlight. I really like it, but it was kind of fading here. So if you look at this is the inner end of the spring shaft. I've done some cleaning on it, and you'll notice there's no hole, and the threads do not show any sort of hole slots. But I noticed that the old spring that I took out, right, here's the end that was broken. This actually may have been a replacement spring that broke because it's awfully shiny compared to the rest of the machine. Anyway, you'll notice that the inner piece was here. So as you thread this in, I'm going to go, and this looks like a better version of a Singer spring. And of course, we're not going to go this way because then the spring where we need our thread to go will be too far toward the body of the machine. We need it to project out. So let me see if I can show this to you guys. I'm putting the spring. Remember, this is how it's, to the left is how it's going to face the front of the machine. The rest of it's going to be reinstalled. So I've got the spring loop, right? So I'm going to be coming this way. So the spring is going to be on the, let's see if I can get this to show up in the light. It's going to be on the left side if you're looking at it, right? Where the little, the catch part of the check spring here is on my left. So I'm going to come like this. Remember, I'm not coming from this side where I'm going to be putting everything else back on. And now, if you look here, look at the top, right? You'll notice that that little piece, let's see if I can get it up close there. No. You can see it's gonna kind of act like a stop, right? It's going to catch the spring on here to keep it from, so it's not just going to keep just sliding off toward the front, right? Because we want it to be still. And then when I go to reinstall this into this, I've got to clean this, I'll be screwing it back in, and this should seat the spring to kind of hold it still, okay? Because when I turn it, like I say, there's no hold that it's catching on. Sometimes you'll see a little place where the little spring stop is designed to sort of insert into, but I don't see that right now. I'm not seeing one of those as I turn this, right? It's not catching on anything, it's just the thread. But I believe when this is inserted, the thread itself, this will basically, the pressure will hold the spring still, and that's what we want. So now I'm going to do a little cleaning over here. Where are my trusty cotton swabs? Oh no, I'm out of cotton swabs. Uh-oh. Okay guys, I went and got some of this again, I typically use, what is this? These are generic cotton swabs. For general cleaning, they're fine. These are the precision tips I was telling you guys about. The only precision tips I've seen are this brand name. Maybe you'll eventually see these in generic. But I'm going to use, I've got some of these kind of mixed in. I'm going to use some of the precision tips to get in here. I don't want any straggling cotton fibers to be left in here. These are parts that move together, and I really want to prevent that as an issue. So dip down here in the alcohol, and you'll see I'm going to come in here and just try to get some. This is not aesthetic polishing. It's really about when you're putting parts back together, you don't want to have any dirty old oil and goop. You don't want dirt or old gummed up stuff to get in your way. You want things to fit properly, and this is an example of where you really want that to happen. So just kind of do this. I normally don't do a lot of video time with you guys watching me clean things, but this specific procedure is something I wanted to kind of show you guys, let you see how important it is to get this particular area cleaned. And then before I assemble it back together, I'm going to probably take some polish here and clean this up. We're not going to get it back to a chromy shine, and that's okay, but I want to, you can still see there's a lot of the sort of the nickel there that we want to get. It's going to be easier to get it now than when I start assembling this back together. Once I get these parts in, I can still polish around the outside. That's more for show. But this is actually not so much for show as it is for just maintenance, because you want it to perform, right? You really want it to perform its function. There's a little piece there. Okay, so we've got that cleaned. Now I mentioned to you guys we need to clean this, right? It's pretty grimy here, so let's get it. Again, we're just trying to get ourselves kind of a clean slate here when we put things back together. I'm not worried about dust. I'll probably put a coating of not really polish. I can just use sewing oil here because this area is going to be sealed off pretty well. I'm not worried about lint and dust sticking to the oil in this area. That's one of the reasons I like using polish on metal parts when I can, because I've mentioned to you guys before, sewing machine oil is a very good sealer, but the polish I think works even better. I think one of my viewers mentioned that, and they're right. There's nothing wrong with sewing oil in order to prevent oxidation, but the polish will stay on there longer, and I think the polish may attract a little less dust than the oil. I have never tested it, but that's just kind of a guess. Good guess on my part. Okay, now let's see. We're going to see if we can put all of this back together. I'm just getting more of this old grungy stuff here off. And because this is going to be sliding into this, right, I don't really necessarily need oil on it. I'm going to put just a fine coating of oil, but I'm going to buff it off. I don't need a, these are not parts that normally move against each other. I just want to be able to move it if I have to take it out again. So I'll just take, this is a old piece of cotton that I was doing some test stitching on. So what we'll do here is we'll get this, like I say, we'll get the bulk of the oil buffed off and just have like a light film of it. And of course, remembering that we want the open area, notice that part of this area is open, and we want that area to be right here, right? Because this is where our check spring is going to need to move. It's going to have some movement area, so you don't want it way over here, like over in like 11 o'clock. You want it here because this is the side where the check spring is going to engage with the thread, okay? And it's okay if this is moving right now, because we're going to get our other piece to go back in, and I definitely gonna, let's see, what should I do here? Gonna clean this up a bit. Okay guys, so I want to make sure, since this piece is going to be threaded back into that housing, I want to make sure that I've got just a coating of oil, and definitely want oil on the threads. And then for this part of the shaft that needs to go, this is just going to be just oil that I'm going to lightly buff. I'm not really needing a heavy coat, just need something on there. Okay, what else have we got here? Let's take a look. Always inspect your spring. This is the beehive spring. Sometimes you'll get a very ever so light coating of rust or oxidation. This can happen on any of these, not just one that's from 1905. In fact, I'm pretty impressed that it has almost none, which tells you not only was it stored inside most, if not all of its life, it was cared for. Because if it wasn't, the machine will tattle on its prior owners, because you'll see it in some ways. Okay, now what are we going to do? We're going to take our spring, okay, and again I've got the end. I want this end, it's going to be facing, let's turn this up, it's going to be facing like this, right? Because it needs to engage the thread as it comes off of the machine. So I'm going to be, and again, you can't put it on this way because the little catch piece at the very base of this spring is blocking it. It's not meant to go on that way. We want to put it on from the back. And if you drop your spring, do not worry. Just don't step on it and distort it in any way. Okay, so we're gonna, from the top here. So I'm gonna come here. This again is from the back side, the side that you won't see once we reinstall it. And it's gonna stop right at the base of these threads because of that little piece that's catching it. You can see it right there, like at 6 o'clock. You'll see it. I think you can see it. It's a little tough to see. Okay, now I'm now going to, where's my next piece here? So I'm going to take this back out for a moment so I can go ahead and get this threaded in. and you'll be able to see the other end coming from that side. And I'll just keep threading, and then as soon as it snugs up, that's enough. I don't need to torque it down. Okay. In fact, I may want to come back just a bit so that this spring has the ability to move, because you'll notice if I torque this down too tight, the spring can't move. And of course, a check spring is designed to have some give, right? It needs to bounce as the thread pulls up on it, right? The tension of the spring will give it what it needs here. Whoops! You can see it came off because I was pushing it a little too much there. So we'll get it lined back up. In fact, if we pull it out here, we can see if in fact it came off. But not, it's actually seating down. Now you can see that little spring extension there. But I like having it, we'll pull it right back out. This does not take as long as it is in this video, in part because I'm having to do all of this with the camera in front of my face, which is not ergonomically friendly, but can't really show you guys unless I do that. Now, remember that gap in this big piece here? You'll notice that the spring, as I turn this, the spring is stopping, and that's the little checkpoint. You want that. This is where you want your spring projecting from. This little section, this is where I was telling you guys between, what did I say, 1 and 5 o'clock, something like that, right? So from here down to here is open, right? It's like a little inset cut piece. The rest of it is higher, the rim is higher. You want the spring, this is the little place where the spring's going to live, right? So it needs to be there because otherwise it's not going to work properly. So here I am turning it. And we'll just, boom, and it stopped, okay? And if I have to loosen it, I can. It was tight as a drum. You guys saw me, I had to use the vice grips to loosen it. But now it's moving again. God knows how long it's been since it last moved. And so now it seems to be moving fine, and it's lined up with our little spot here. Okay. And if it wiggles on you, you can simply loosen and then start over, right? You can do that. That's not a big deal. You're not really going to hurt it because you're not smashing the spring. It's not really getting bent. Okay, so we'll just, the main thing to remember is as you're threading this back in, again, here's that gap, right? You can see it there. This is, you want the loop of the spring lined up. Spring wants to wiggle around sometimes, but that's okay. You want the loop of the spring to line up with this gap, and I'm just slowly putting this back in. Okay, and it stopped, and we've got our spring. Now we're going to take and we're going to insert, right? And we're going to make sure that this gap, again, you don't want it way down here, you don't want it up here, because remember your spring needs to live right around that loop. The loop of the spring, I can see it there, is going to be facing about 3 o'clock, right? It needs to face 3 o'clock because, or maybe, if not 3 o'clock, it's going to be close, right? A little above maybe. And again, this is also, we can move this, but that's why we have this little set screw. Not only does it hold it in place, but it allows you to adjust that if you need to. Again, the brilliance of the engineering design back in the day. Let's clean this old screw. It's kind of nasty. Again, guys, one of the reasons I have been such a fan of Singer's as a brand to restore is that, although there are exceptions, okay, the potted motors, the original potted motors are an example of exceptions where they're very time consuming, right? They're not really easy to access like so many other Singer parts are. But much of Singer's designs were incredible. They were amazing. So notice that I've got this piece here in place. I don't want it to wiggle around, So to make this screw easier to deal with, I do this with almost all the screws on a machine I restore. So here you can see me, I'm putting 1 drop of oil. That's not part of your normal maintenance and oiling, don't worry. But for overhauling a machine, it's just nice. You know, these screws would have had oil when they left the factory. And it's been a long time since this thing got any love at all. So we're going to go ahead and put our set screw back in. Okay. And I can still polish out here. I don't really want to get polished down in my screw threads. That would not be cool. And here I'm just going to tighten it. There we go. And now it's not going to wiggle. But if we need to adjust the position here to make sure our check spring is functioning, I think we're fine. But now, take a look, guys. You see where the check spring sits, right? And notice, I'm not sure this is going to read well for you guys in this light, but we'll try. I know there's a glare here. But if you look closely, the main piece of the spring, the main piece before we come out for the loop, notice where it's sitting. It's kind of laying and resting in this open gap, and it needs to, right? That keeps it from spinning around. You don't want that because you'll lose your tension. Now, here's what's the remains of our old spring. And now I've got these pieces. So I'm just going to take this, and I'm going to clean and polish it along with the discs. And then I'll pause the video for a moment, and because I don't know, watching someone polish something, maybe like watching paint dry, I don't know. But you can see where I've gotten this in here, and I can take I am going to take my my Q-tips and rags and polish and get this cleaned. Okay, it's not going to be high chrome shiny. It might. We'll see what it does. But the main thing is to clean it up and preserve it and get it ready for a new life of sewing. So hang in there, guys, and I'll be right back with you, and we'll reassemble the last pieces of this. Okay, guys, you are looking at the side plate, and I could have waited to put the spring shaft back in. You don't want to get polish on the spring. If you do, it'll come off with the thread. But again, I managed to get in here without getting polish on it. But you can do it either way, whichever way is easier for you to get to it without making a mess. But what I'm doing, and again, cotton swabs to the rescue here, and all I'm doing is taking the polish, and when you apply polish, at least for the purposes of, I don't know about polishing silver and flatware, but for polishing something like this, you basically want to dab the polish on. I'm not really rubbing it in. I'm just sort of getting it onto the surfaces. I'm also, by the way, getting it onto this bar here because thread is going to rub against this bar, and the thread likes smooth metal. It does not like metal that is sticky or rough. It's going to be a lot more cooperative for your sewing if your metal parts are low in friction. Okay, so I put this stuff on here and I let it sit. It's been sitting for a few minutes since I had the video on before. And I do that because polishes have, I may have mentioned this in an earlier how to clean metal parts on your machine. Metal polishes have solvents and maybe oils and other constituent ingredients, but they help to soften the old buildup of stuff that's on metal. And so you can see, I'm just letting it sit here. It hasn't dried. Some people wait till it dries, but I'm not. And you can see it really helps. Now this is a very micro abrasive polish. It's very gentle on metal. I don't use heavy abrasives on sewing machine parts. And you can see what's coming off here, right? And the alcohol alone won't take that off, but the polish will. And again, it's going to be a lot nicer than it was originally. Will it be back to exactly new? No, but that's not the point. As one of my viewers mentioned once, what we're really doing here is conservation, okay? If you wanted to, you could have these parts taken out and stripped and replated with nickel. There are people who will do that, particularly on machines that are rare, doing restorations of very rare, precious machines. But of course, this machine, although it's from 1905, is not rare. It's, like I say, there are plenty of them out there still servicing, still providing service after all these years. But the polish is going to really clean things up. And any of the rest of this, I consider patina. I consider that sort of the wear marks of use. And I think it's part of the history. It does not bother me. There are people who paint sewing machines because they want them to look like they did the day they left the showroom. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it involves time and cost that my clients typically they're not interested in. They want a machine to be serviced, to be maintained, so they can use it, so they can sew with it. And this is why I don't I don't typically do, restoration of pieces that are museum quality. Although some of the machines I've had were they cleaned up so beautifully you could literally display them, and some people do. Some people collect these machines, they put them on display. I basically find machines, I rescue them. This is not my machine; it belongs to someone else. But I typically will find machines and rescue them, and hold on to them until I find a client that wants that machine, and I've saved the machine, and by getting it back into running condition, you can find people who want to use them. A machine without, if a machine's not in running condition, it's going to be very difficult for a sewer to use it or even want to use it, and I certainly don't blame them for that at all. So you can see, like I say, we're cleaning this up. It's going to be so much nicer than it was. And it'll still have some of the wear marks of its history, which again, I think is cool. That's very subjective. I think it's preferable to stripping and totally redoing something. And this is, of course, aesthetic, right? There's nothing functional. My polishing this is not going to make the machine sew better, right? It's aesthetic, but aesthetics matter, and someone is hoping to use this. They may have it on display, and they want it to look nice. I do too. Anything that I have, I want my car to be clean and look nice, whether it's newer or older. But again, how cool is it, back to the topic of restoration, to know that you can still get parts. You can still get springs for a 1905 Singer. I'm not even talking about a 50s or 60s Singer. I'm talking about 1905. Holy cow. That tells you something about how many machines Singer sold over the generations. And when you combine that, the sheer market size of the Singer brand, and the fact that Singer, when they had a good thing going, they just kept on making it. And I mean, they kept on and on making it. Even when they made machines in multiple factories around the world. Many of the Singer designs that we know and love, the 15s, the 201s, the featherweights, they were made not only in North America, but multiple places in the world. They were made in the United Kingdom, and with the exception of the electrical systems, for the most part, they made the same machine. In the Kilbowie, Scotland plant, Clydebank, Kilbowie, Scotland, that they made in New Jersey and that they made in Germany. There were sometimes exceptions to this, right? But when you consider all the machines that Singer designed and produced in its history during its golden era, it's quite remarkable to realize that most of their designs were consistent, even made in different factories, and that really helps those of us who, when we go looking for a part, whether it's a vintage part or we need to, we've got to maybe get a reproduction part like a rubber tire or something. Because there were so many of these machines out there, there are companies that make reproduction parts, thank goodness, And those reproduction parts, for the most part, are made in China or Taiwan. And, it's okay. Those things are fine. When you get to parts that are machined when tolerances matter, that's when it becomes more difficult and you have to be careful. Any of you who have a Singer featherweight who've had to buy a reproduction bobbin case will know what I'm talking about. There's a reason the originals are preferred, because they were made with a precision that the reproductions just are not. No one is gearing up to make them to that level of quality. So again, you can decide when you're doing a machine how much do you want to clean and polish. My goal here is to get this machine functioning wonderfully again and cleaning it up, and she's looking pretty good. So what do we like, guys? We have, now you'll notice as I was doing this, the spring, she moved around a bit. So we're going to put her back here. Now when we put the other pieces on, that's going to help keep that spring in place. And so, to that point, I've got this piece to clean up and polish, guys. We'll be back, and then we'll get the rest of it put back together. Okay, guys, been making some progress here. Got this piece polished and shined, and over here, this is where the thumb screw that attaches the plate to the head of the machine was, and there was some brown around the edge. A lot of times, if the screws are tightened too much, they can actually damage the nickel coating or plating. But this one seemed okay. I took some polish and that brown came out. So that was old, it was either some light oxidation or just old oil. Sometimes it's rust and you do the best you can. But this is actually, turning out quite well, I think, considering how old she is. And so, what's our next thing we need to do? Oh, our discs. And the discs, of course, are very important to make sure that they're cleaned and polished. This is one of the most important areas of any sewing machine, because the upper thread, a lot of its tension is created or it's made possible by these discs. So you don't want dirt, old oil. I mean, there's a lot of old dirt behind them. There wasn't much on the surface. Of course, that's the most important area. But we're going to clean them and we're going to polish them while we've got them out of the machine. Those of you who use machines, you don't need, if your machine is in good condition and it's been at some point in its life, maybe you've had it done, you've had it polished. You don't need to polish these on a regular basis. It's not like you have to do it every year or anything. It's really up to you and your own personal preference. But I like to make sure that, when I get the machine back to the client, that they basically have a nice clean slate. And this just ensures that we have nice smooth discs, because again, smooth metal and thread, they make for a happy sewing machine. If you don't have that, if you don't have problems, you're looking at an invitation to a problem with your tension, because you don't want. It's actually remarkable how smooth these are, considering how old they are. Again, the quality of everything was better, even all these little parts. You want your thread to move against these pieces of steel very smoothly. It's what it was designed to do. If thread is going to have to cross something that's dirty, or maybe it's not smooth for whatever reason, it's got any breaks in it, that's not good. That's not going to be good for tension. Okay, so now let's see. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more here. Get some polish. Put it on both sides here. I just put it with my hand. Sometimes that's just easier. Got my gloves on here. That makes it less of a problem. And then just take the cloth and buff it. I don't need to leave any of this on here. I'm just going to buff it. And there'll be a very fine light film of polish, which is going to really help keep. It's going to do a couple things. It's going to make the metal even smoother, just like when you wax a car. If you've ever touched a car's finish after you've waxed it, you know how smooth and slick it is. But it's also going to help provide just enough of a film to protect these parts from any future oxidation, right? For a good while. It's nice to do. Okay, so we've got those. And of course, these discs face each other. Think of it as there's, the concave and the convex, right? So you'll notice that they dip down on the back side, but the front side, they are actually curved outward, and those two outward curves are going to face each other. Then we're going to take our other piece, and these fit nice and snug in here. And then, what is our next move here? We're going to reinstall them. I'm going to have to move my camera a bit here. It's hard to appreciate just how awkward it can be to film something and do it until you've actually tried to do that. Okay, so we've got our check spring, and we're going to take this piece and we're going to feed it back in where it was, and we've got our discs in there. Remember, this is the piece that gets pushed on when it's time to loosen. You can see me doing it here with my finger. Now, we need our beehive spring, and of course, we're going to put it on. You want it in this position, so it looks like a little teacup. We're going to put it on. Now, and I've got nice movement. This shaft, I kind of turned back on it a bit. I want the slit in this shaft, I want it to be horizontal when I'm facing it. Okay, so that my pieces go on, and they're going to hang. Here's that little teacup beehive spring. And then this is a simpler tensioning device than the ones you guys would see later come about. And where's my oil? I like having a fresh drop of oil on the threads of any part that's going on here. It's always nice to have. Now, when this thumb screw comes on top of the beehive, remember, that is how you're adjusting your tension, right? There's no numbered dial. This is actually the way this is supposed to look. Now, when you see this, notice and you can see where my, see if I can get this to show up. There it is. It's hard to see the spring, I realize. Notice when I push. Give me my little pointer here. Get this in a place where you guys can actually see it moving. Right? So notice, right? I push up and then it snaps back. Boom. So I've got, and of course, this is what I want. I want it to be able to have tension, but I need it to move. So that's kind of a good place. So there we go, guys. We have taken apart, cleaned, polished, installed a new spring, and reassembled the tension assembly, the upper assembly, for the Singer 15-30 treadle. Whew, that was a mouthful. And it's a good thing we finished up because we are pushing just under an hour. It's one of my longer videos. But sometimes people say, hey, can you make the video shorter? And then other people say, I really wish you would have shown this. So I'm trying to do a variety. If the video is too long, you can always skip around through it to see what parts you'd like to see. But anyway, we have taken a 115-year-old side plate and we've got her looking a lot better and ready, hopefully, to perform once again. So I'll be reinstalling this on the machine and almost ready to get this packed up and ready to go back to its owner. Thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Stay tuned. We've got a few more videos coming up that I know of. I'll be introducing them. I typically post videos, you guys may have noticed, more on the weekends because I find people have more time to watch them. You may be an exception to that. Anyway, stay tuned, and I will be doing another video as I wrap this machine up and get it ready to take back to its treadle table so that we can get it a new life. So 59 minutes and 30 seconds. Thanks for watching, folks. We will see you next time.